From the Subaru of Gwinnett studio, this is Injury Insider with Derek Hayes. Injured in Georgia? Make the right call to the law office of Derek M. Hayes at 404-777-HURT. Injury Insider is presented by Status Home Design, your one-stop shop for all your home and gift needs.
Hello and welcome to Injury Insider with Derek Hayes on Business Radio X. We are broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio in the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. This show will answer legal questions and debunk personal injury myths with insight and humor. For nearly 25 years, Derek has represented injured parties in Georgia. Now he'd like to put that knowledge to work for you. I'm your host, Lita Brooks, and it's my pleasure to introduce the star of our show, Derek Hayes. Good afternoon, Derek.
Good afternoon, Lita. And when you said that part about humor in the opening, I feel like pressure there. We've got to be humorous every now and then. We've got to figure that out somehow, some way.
I think between us, you're the funny one.
Well,
so you're going to have to step it up a notch here. But before we begin and we get to our funny humor, a quick reminder that Injury Insider is brought to you by Status Home Design, your one-stop shop for all your home and gift needs, and by the law office of Derek M. Hayes. Injured in Georgia? Make the right call to the law office of Derek M. Hayes at 404-777-HURT.
There's your humor.
There you go. All right. At the end of our last Injury Insider podcast, you mentioned that you wanted to discuss how insurance companies can turn a natural disaster like Hurricane Katrina, for example, into a major profit windfall. So we have a fantastic show. We're going to jump right into that topic. And I also want to throw the teaser that we have a fantastic guest here in studio with us today. And after we talk about, this is absolutely fascinating, and what you're about to talk about, I found a lot of education just in going through this with you. And then we're going to get to our guest.
Absolutely. Look forward to the guest as well. She's wonderful. But Hurricane Katrina, this all came from a question that I got right before the last podcast. I got it probably an hour or so before, and it was too late to involve it or to use that in that one. But I did want to make sure we address it in the podcast today. Hurricane Katrina was back on August 29 of 2005. If people may not remember the date, I'm sure they do remember the hurricane. I'm personally from the Panhandle area of Florida and lived in South Alabama, so that's an area that is near and dear to my heart and kind of hit home for me with the devastation that was caused by Hurricane Katrina. In fact, almost 1,600 people were killed. It caused complete destruction of all the Gulf Coast areas, really from Florida all the way through Louisiana, and we know what it did to New Orleans. There was homelessness, joblessness, and a complete loss of hope, really, for many people in those areas. The final amount of damages, monetary damages, were estimated to be around $135 billion. That's with a B. $135 billion, but yet the insurance company showed a profit, a record profit of $40 billion for that same year, 2005, which also was one of the most disastrous years we've ever had on record. And that increased their total surplus value of insurance, of the insurance industry, to around $427 billion.
Wow. Yeah, that's, again, fascinating because those numbers, that's crazy. That somewhere here in the United States would face that kind of destruction, and yet they're surplusing and coming back with those numbers. So tell us, how were they able to make that amount in profits when they had billions in claims that were submitted?
Easy and deceptive. That's a good way to put it. In the sense that, as awful as it sounds, insurance companies denied countless claims of homeowners based on a simple exemption in their homeowners policy. You see, homeowners policies will take care of wind damage and storm damage, but homeowners insurance policies do not pay for flood damage. So to qualify the damage as flood damage as opposed to wind or storm damage, it helped them avoid paying out those claims. So you can only really purchase flood insurance through FEMA. There are certain plans now that are available really kind of as a result of Katrina, but at the time, FEMA was the way to purchase flood insurance. And so when people purchased homeowners insurance coverage, there's an assumption that whether it be flood, fire, wind, storm, tornado, hurricane, your home will be repaired, replaced, or you'll have a claim based on what's happened. But yes, they classified or qualified all of the damage, or the majority of the damage, as flood as opposed to wind or storm, and very easily and very deceptively were able to avoid paying out countless dollars, billions of dollars in claims.
Wow. why is this not reported? I would think this would be the top story on the news. Why have we not heard any? Why do I not know more about this?
Well, there's a little bit of an assumption in my answer, but I think it's an educated guess. If you think about major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, all the affiliates that run nationwide commercials, not Nationwide, the insurance company, but national commercials. Let's go with that. State Farm, Allstate, Liberty Mutual, Progressive, Geico, everyone knows their jingle, everyone knows their gimmick, everyone's seen their commercials. We're inundated with those. And if a news program, for example, Dateline, Primetime, 48 Hours, any of those that are news programs that run exposés, stories that expose certain underbellies of industries, if they were going to run a story about the insurance industry that was going to be a negative to them, well, I could foresee a phone call to an executive at NBC, for example. I heard you've got a story ready to run, and I know what it's going to say about State Farm. And with that being said, we're looking at our advertising budget and the amount of money we spend on ads on your network, and we're reconsidering our purchase for the next 6 months, next 2 years, next 5 years. So we understand you've got the story, but we're also going to reevaluate the money we're going to spend with your network.
So it could have been hushed.
Could have been money. I mean, money, unfortunately, can do a lot of things.
Hushed because of money.
Well, yes, exactly. And therefore, the real story that came from Katrina in many ways was hidden from the media, or the media knew about it and hid it from that national reporting that unfortunately could have exposed what was going on.
But Katrina was a hurricane, not a flood. There were several areas that were flooded, but wasn't that all caused by the wind and the storm?
Yes. And I'm not a meteorologist, I'm not a storm expert, but there were lawsuits that came from all of this. And the interesting part, kind of on a side note, the insurance industry almost immediately started playing the game of trying to label this as flood. In fact, they called it almost immediately the Great New Orleans Flood, and I'm putting that in quotes, the Great New Orleans Flood. A company called Risk Management Solutions issued a press release on September 2nd. Now remember, the hurricane was on August 29th. So by September 2nd, there's already a press release from the company, again, Risk Management Solutions, and they said that the experts expect that the economic loss is to be in the excess of $100 billion from Hurricane Katrina and the Great New Orleans Flood. A leading meteorologist testified eventually that against Nationwide specifically in a lawsuit that hurricane-force winds battered the coast for hours before water made its way to homes, and the majority of homes were already destroyed by the time any flooding began, when the levees broke and as the flood the waters poured into New Orleans. The subheading of that article was "Initial Hurricane Storm Surge Leads to Second Flooding Catastrophic or Catastrophe When Levees Are Breached in New Orleans." So again, the game was being played to label this purely as flood for the purpose of denying the wind and storm damage claims.
Wow. It just seems so unfortunate to all those people who lost their home truly to the wind and the storm, and here come the floodwaters, completely secondary, and they weren't able to fix their homes or recoup any of that money.
Sure. Even survivors testified in that trial against Nationwide that when they were in their home, they only had a few feet of water just seeping in basically at that point when their roof was blown off. The walls were blown down. Trees were blown into their home. Cars were turned upside down. So the vast majority of the devastation occurred long before the hurricane even, the levee was breached with the floodwater, with the storm surge.
Sure, but you're saying Nationwide. It wasn't just limited to Nationwide, correct?
No, it wasn't.
It was all the insurance companies.
Yeah, there were roughly 7 or 8 insurance companies that were included in this. I named most of them: Allstate, State Farm, Liberty Mutual, Progressive. The big boys, so to speak, they were all guilty of the same kind of thing. Another issue that they did, or another thing they did, is they had hurricane disaster relief teams that would go into these hard-hit areas, and they would play your best friend. I'm with your insurance company. I'm here to take care of your homeowner's claim. We know, obviously, at this point, you're living in a tent, potentially in your front yard. We want to give you some money to help you buy food, get a hotel room, some clothing, even to you just have a little bit of money in pocket to start taking care of those initial expenses. So they would have people accept a check and hand them a release form without the ability of an attorney reading the release or someone to advise them. And buried in the language, which many times people don't read, or if you do read, may not understand, it was an acknowledgement that you were saying the majority of your damage was caused by flood and not by the hurricane. So later on, when it came time to evaluate or adjust the remaining part of your claim, they would point out, well, you received a check already and you've already acknowledged that the vast majority of your damage was caused by flood, so therefore we're denying the majority of your claim, or they would reduce the amount they would pay by as much as 50%.
Wow. So this is really how they continue to push the flood argument. You know,
absolutely.
It's very heartbreaking, especially for all those people. I think everybody remembers over every hurricane that we've had here in the United States. I think Hurricane Katrina would be the one everyone remembers going through that, and just really the devastation that it caused.
Yeah, it became profits over people.
Right.
And then they very happily and are very willing to accept your premiums every month or every 2 months, 3 months when you send that check in. But yet when it comes time for them to do exactly what you expect them to do, they're not doing it. Nationwide, in fact, in their policy, they had a hurricane deductible. So they pushed real hard on this is going to take care of you in case of a hurricane. This is going to take care of you in case of major damage done to your home. But yet when it came time to actually pay those claims, they did everything they could to escape having to pay, and therefore the profits went up.
So did anything happen to the insurance companies for denying these claims?
Yeah, several states filed suit. The attorneys general in those states did go after the insurance companies. Specifically in Mississippi, Jim Hood, who was the attorney general at the time, he filed suit against 5 different insurance companies: State Farm, Allstate, USAA, Nationwide, and Mississippi Farm Bureau. The suit alleged that the adjusters were trying to trick Katrina and victims out of millions in legitimate claims, kind of like we talked about, by signing off on release documents before they would give them a check. The homeowners weren't given a chance to speak to an attorney or get advice on what they should or should not be signing. And this admission to the insurance company that it was caused by flood damage was the basis eventually for the insurance company to deny the claim, as I said.
Wow. All right. So do you have any specific examples of a family and going through this and what the insurance company did?
Yes, I do. State Farm, and I just looked at one of countless examples. There are many, many out there that you can look up and read. But State Farm denied the claim of the Wynn family in Mississippi. In fact, their story was featured on CNN at the time. They were insured by State Farm. State Farm denied the claim based on the argument, like we said, that the damage was caused by flood and not by storm or by hurricane. And so the family wound up having to file suit to try and get their homeowner's insurance claim paid. Well, a neighbor testified that they watched the Wynn's house get blown away before the floods even came into that area. So they had an eyewitness who rode out the storm at home, not the Wynn family, but a neighbor, who literally witnessed their home being destroyed by wind and by tornadoes, I assume, or the damage that would come from a hurricane before the floodwater even made it there. So an eyewitness testimony. The family had 2 different engineering experts that testified, showing that the damage was caused purely by wind after going out and looking at what was left of the home and what was left from the devastation. But State Farm had their own hired gun. They found an expert who was willing, I'm sure based on the paycheck, to testify that no, this was all flood damage. This was not caused by the hurricane. This was not caused by the wind. And basically rebutting what the eyewitness, the person who saw it happen, had testified to. And thankfully, ultimately, State Farm did wind up having to pay that claim.
All right, that was my next question. Tell me how this turned out
they
for
lost,
the Wynn family.
And should have. They truly should have been forced to pay that claim, and thankfully they were. It is the kind of, again, story that you don't hear on national networks for whatever reason. It's not the kind of thing that was very well publicized then or even now. So to go back to the whole theme of this, insurance companies are able to turn a major profit by again, denying claims and doing deceptive things, and I will use that word, to avoid having to pay what they should pay, but yet they're so happy to collect your premiums. And they'll tell you that they're on your side. They're your good neighbor. They're all those
the slogans.
And as I say those,
side.
Everybody knows the insurance company based on those slogans. And it's amazing, though, that again, something as simple as a hurricane devastation with wind and storms, but yet a way of just wiggling out of having to pay a legitimate claim.
It really is amazing. And I led in this by saying I have learned so much just in having this conversation with you from the question coming in. And so let's talk about if someone else has a question, how do they submit their questions to you? Because their questions make fantastic topics.
Yeah, and that was a great question, and that's why I wanted to make sure I addressed it in this show. So if you do have a question, if you can go to my website, it's Derek, D-E-R-E-K, the letter M as in Matthew, Hayes, H-A-Y-S, so DerekMHayes.com. You'll see at the top of my website a tab for a podcast. You click on that, and there's an area there where you can submit your question directly to me, and then I'll address it on the next podcast or as soon as I can to make sure we respond to all of those. In fact, I've had a lot of questions that have come in, and many of them, interestingly, are duplicate questions, but I'll get to all those as best we can. You can also look at my Facebook page, the Law Office of Derek M. Hayes, Instagram, the Law Office of Derek M. Hayes, or you can call me. My office number is 404-777-HURT or 678-225-0970. I'm always happy to talk to anyone to discuss your potential claim, and doesn't cost you anything. The initial consultation is always free, so you can reach out to me on any kind of claim where you have a question, and I'll be happy to discuss that with you. One last point I want to make about the profits with the hurricane. It's interesting, too, that as soon as that was over and done with, after the dust had settled, so to speak, insurance companies raised the rates across the board for any and every kind of insurance you can imagine. Homeowners insurance, car insurance, life insurance, any kind of health insurance, you name it, they raised rates, and they cited the losses from Hurricane Katrina really as being the justification for increasing the rates. So that's another way that profits increased dramatically, is the fact that they, number one, avoided paying legitimate claims, continued to collect premiums, and they increased the premium cost and justified it by a natural disaster where they didn't do what they should have done according to their contract, or at least what you would expect your insurance company to do to take care of you.
And we have to have them.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
need them, and you have the kind of false security that when something happens that they're going to be there for you.
Yeah, and then to turn around and potentially, if we want to use the word, be victimized by deceptive practices or things that are done to intentionally avoid paying a legitimate claim.
Well, if anyone listening has any further questions on this specific topic, if we've said something in this podcast that really sparks, I want to know more, you just gave all the information on how to reach you, so please submit. We can go back and get even more further into detail. So, but we have, again, like I led into, we have a fantastic guest here today, Miss Nyssa Green. Welcome to the studio.
I am so happy to be here with you guys.
Well, thank you. And this is really interesting because we three know each other, but very different.
All different reasons. That's right.
I met you completely separate from Derek. Didn't even know that the two of you knew each other.
We've known each other for years.
Yeah. Way longer than any of us have even known each other. So you are a fantastic guest. And again, thank you for coming here. So this
our
is
first guest ever. Let's
oh,
point that out.
Yes.
This
the
is
first
an honor.
Guest
I am so honored. This is so cool.
All right, so there are two reasons why you make the perfect first guest on Injury Insider.
What?
All right, I'm going to tell everybody why. You are a former client of Derek.
Absolutely.
Yes, so he represented you in a car wreck claim.
Oh, yeah, it was
believe.
a good one. Yeah.
All right, so I wanted you to I'm going to push the mic to you, and I want you to talk about your personal injury experience and how that process really worked for you.
Okay, well, I am a makeup artist by trade, so that is how I had met Derek. I actually had to do his makeup for something ages and ages ago.
Let's make it clear. It was for
because it was Friday night.
Just so we're clear, professional photography.
That's right. It was for professional reasons.
TV appearance. It could have been any number of things.
I think it was the news.
It was real stuff. Real lawyer and stuff he was doing.
Okay.
I just don't randomly call and have my makeup done on occasion.
That's true.
But how lucky was it for me, because a couple of months after having him as a client, I was hit by someone. And he was one of the first calls that I made.
That's great.
Yeah, it really was.
Well, all right. So go back to the whole experience. So you get in a car wreck, and you knew right away that you needed an attorney?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just from having hung around him. Like those are things you learn hanging around Derek Hayes. But yeah, I knew that I needed to call. And because I was hit by someone, I just knew the whole situation was not good for me and that I needed representation.
Okay.
And so my first call was to Derek, and I was hit probably at about 7:45 at night, I got somebody from their office to call me back. I mean, the very next morning, first thing, the first phone call I got the following morning was from their office.
Were you injured?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, so you sought treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Had property damage.
Yeah, my car. I think we might have totaled my car out. I think it did.
Okay. So, we're connecting the dots here, and you went through all this with Derek being your attorney.
But having no clue how all this goes. I think everybody sits at home. You see the TV commercials. If you get injured, call an attorney. You don't really know how all that comes together or why you really need it. So I was just really lucky and had met Derek already and knew that I was going to be with someone that would walk me through every step of it.
So everyone sitting at home, not really knowing the process, would you recommend that they call an attorney if they're in the same situation?
Absolutely. Not even just in the same situation. Even if you don't think you're hurt, even if you don't know if you're really hurt, you definitely need to call an attorney.
That's a really good point.
It made a huge difference for me, even down to the doctors that they referred me to. Like, everything just got better, and I felt so much better about the situation, knowing that I was going to get back the money that I was losing from work because I could not work. I'm an independent contractor. So when I do not work, that is called unemployment. And so I knew that I would be taken care of, and I was.
Would you recommend Derek and his firm again?
Duh. Absolutely. Cutest thing ever come out of Auburn University. Are you kidding me?
No. Did you just say Auburn?
Come on. We do this every single time because for some reason, I don't know how this brilliance came out of the wrong university, but War Eagle.
Now, I've been looking for an opportunity to say Roll Tide at some point.
Gosh.
So there we go.
There we go.
There's the Roll Tide.
But I think it's funny. Those who are listening and cannot see, Derek's about beat red right now. He's blushing, and
it's crimson for
no.
Oh my gosh! Did he really find a way to tie that in?
He did.
Okay,
he did. All right, Nyssa, you are extremely talented. You are a business lady with quite a reputation for success and hard work. I'm going to turn it over to you. I want you to talk to us about the Green Room Agency.
Oh, gosh, my baby. The Green Room Agency is an agency that I started back in the late 90s when I first moved to Atlanta. And I started the agency because my makeup career was kind of taking off, and I felt like I needed representation. Okay. And I couldn't find an agent, so I became my agent. I became my own agent, and that's how my agency started. And from there, I just, eventually connected with other makeup artists, hairstylists, manicurists, wardrobe stylists that needed representation. But really, my agency literally was just started out of me needing an agent and not being able to get one in Atlanta.
So tell me what it means if I need an appearance, and that is how you and I met.
Yes,
right?
That is. On the flip side of things.
Yes,
that's
you
right.
pulled me into your chair, and you were working on my hair and makeup for an appearance that I was doing for the Best Self magazine.
Yep, that's right.
So what I remember about that day, of course, I worked with you specifically, but there was a whole team of hair and makeup. Do everyone that was there, do they work for the Green Room Agency?
Everyone that was there that day, yes, works for my agency, and everybody that works for my agency is trained by me. They go through a really, really extensive training program. They're trained by me. And we all work together as well as we all do our individual clients as well.
Okay, so if someone needs a makeup artist for an appearance,
gotcha.
I know you do weddings.
Yep.
We just contact the agency
That's it.
You send the right person for the job.
I'm going to send the best person for that job.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to jump in here for a minute. I know that you're among the who's who of Atlanta. I would consider you to be very well connected.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, and we've had conversations about this before, tell us about some of your clientele.
Oh, wow. So, one of my first big gigs, I started doing hair and makeup at CNN. So I was a hairstylist and trainer there for over 10 years. I've worked at just about every local station here in Atlanta. I was the key makeup artist for WXIA 11 Alive for over 12 years. I've done Fox 5 for 8 years. I've done some stuff over at CBS. So I hop around a lot. And then right before Corona, I was traveling on the road with one of my favorite clients, Cheryl Underwood, who is a comedian and co-host on The Talk. And so that kept me on the road probably about 4 days a week. But so we do it all. Anything involving image, we cover it at the Green Room Agency, whether it's closet organization, personal shopping, hair and makeup for weddings, special occasions, hair and makeup just because you want to look cute because you're going to Kroger, whatever, we do it.
I love what you've grown your business into, and I love your story. Yeah. It started with you, and now you have this huge, it's a true agency.
It is. And again, lucky for me, in times like this, I have people like Derek in my back pocket because everything's quote unquote open up right now. But it's a little different in my world. And there's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of fear, not just because of the virus, but the way I look at it is if someone comes to me for a service, or one of my salon owners or one of my other artists that does nails and goes to them and a month later goes, oh, I got corona, girl, I got it from you. Can we get sued? Because if so, I will continue to not work.
Well, I'm going to jump in and answer the question. I appreciate that. And that's actually a question I've had already at my office. I've had more than one phone call about coronavirus and the liability exposure for businesses. Well, here's really the
every
answer.
Business owner has to think
that.
Right?
It's come to me. Yes.
Right. I mean, we all think that.
Well, here's really the only answer I can give you in the moment, because, again, there are always going to be things that will change in the law. But right now, the reality is they have to be able to prove conclusively that they contracted corona directly from you or someone working for you.
Right.
And the difficulty in that is we hear all kinds of reports about the airborne nature of the virus.
It's everywhere.
We wear a face mask wherever we go. So someone who encounters you at your business has likely also been to a gas station, a grocery store. They've touched the keypad of a gas pump. They've done any number of things outside, even meeting the neighbor, or picking the mail out of the mailbox, touching the same handle the mailman did. Well, so there are countless ways they could have truly contracted the disease, the virus, but to be able to pinpoint specifically that it came from you, it would be virtually impossible from what I understand about the virus. I don't think an expert would ever testify with 100% certainty. Right. I got that, or the person got that from Nyssa or someone working in her agency.
So that part of the fear about us going back to work, that part we can pretty much eliminate.
Yeah, and you can take the measures necessary to protect them, whether it's the hand sanitizers, the mask, the gloves, all those things that are, again, intended to prevent someone from getting it. But the reality is, and we've talked about this in other shows, 80% of the people that have coronavirus never even know they've got it because they never have a symptom.
Right.
So, again, they could encounter their own family member at home or any number of people that could have given them the virus, but to be able to say specifically it came from you or someone working with your agency would be very difficult, if not impossible.
Good to know.
So I know even before Corona hit, you were really at the forefront of teaching the guidelines and in your industry how to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And then Corona hit. So this is even more relevant than ever.
This is so ironic because, again, when I was doing your makeup, we were talking about this, and this is something that's dear to my heart because you're right. Even before Corona, I pride myself and anybody that is trained by me on learning and practicing best practices when it comes to sanitation and sterilization. And so while some things may change a little bit for me and my crew, that's how we've been working. Like, we've been using ultraviolet light to dry our brushes and disinfect them and sanitize them for years. The use of hand sanitizer. I mean, for maybe at least the last 12 years have been using a hand sanitizer that we love, not sold in stores, but easy to order. But we love it because it's made with all natural ingredients. And if you're washing your hands as much as you really should be around your clients, whether you do hair or makeup, regular Purell will just destroy your hands. So we have a great hand sanitizer, so there's no reason not to use it. But these are things that, again, for me and my company, we've been practicing this stuff since the beginning, since we started doing makeup. And so for all your listeners out there that are going to be getting these services, whether it's for a wedding or an event, you have to. Well, Derek just made it easy because you can just call me. But you have got to know that you can trust and believe in who's touching your face and hair and nails. And so for us, that's just something that we've always done. And those are basic sanitation and sterilization rules. We've always done that. So this is not, while the jolt to our industry is astonishing, it's not a surprise, and it's not something that's going to make us flip the way we've been operating, because that's how we've been operating already. Sanitized kits, everything broken down. We don't use makeup out of containers. And if you see people doing that, that's wrong.
So what you just said, your industry, what changes are you expecting moving forward? How are things? You're in phase one, right?
We are.
So you and your agency and all the people really that are under you have been allowed to open back up. Speak to that. How has the last week and a half been going?
Well, I did a client yesterday. I did it at the salon, but outside. And everybody else that was there, we were social distancing, so it was just me and the client. And again, it's just the basic measures that you have to take to protect yourself. Face shields, mask, and a lot of people say, are you going to start doing makeup with gloves? No, because washing your hands is always going to be way more effective than wearing gloves. And it's going to be cumbersome and not being able to work with your brush. But we're already big hand washers. So, again, that doesn't change much in our field. But we're not going to be able to take as many clients. What would we do? The last time you and I were together, we were in a room with so many other people getting done. We won't have events like that. Those events may happen, but it will be 2 people in the room versus 6 people in the room getting done. And so it's small adjustments like that. But listen, it's for the good of us all. It's for the good of us all, right? And so it's not anything major. And again, for me, I am both lucky and blessed that this is something that we've been practicing already. So for me and my crew, small changes, but nothing major is going to happen because we've already been practicing that stuff.
Well, that's fantastic.
It's wonderful to have you here today. I want to say this on a personal note as a friend, and I consider you to be a friend. It's terrific for you to appear, and the nice things you said about me, I really appreciate that as well.
Listen.
And as always, I'm thrilled to hear how wonderful your business is doing and that you do the wonderful work you do.
I appreciate you. And again, for you to be doing this and keeping people informed, even what you were saying at the beginning of the podcast, that really got to me because I'm from Louisiana.
So
with that being
That's
said,
where I was born.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you know about any of that?
I did not know how the insurance companies
with Katrina.
did. I knew it was bad because I know so many people that were not able to rebuild because they couldn't get insurance money. I did not understand the hustle that caused them not to be able to rebuild. That's so sad and disheartening.
And I didn't know that you were originally from Louisiana,
Yes.
but that worked out well that you were able to hear.
But
hear
you're
that
giving
part.
out such good information, and that's why I love it. And I'm so honored to be the first guest. Like this is so major for me.
I feel like I need a crown or a sash or something to get to
No,
you.
this is so cool. I appreciate that, and the peace of mind that we can have in our industry, knowing that no matter what happens, we can't get sued because this thing is everywhere, and it's just not going to be possible. So being able to eliminate that part of the fear of going back to work. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
That was all the hairstylists and makeup artists
that's right.
in Georgia
And
just
the
giving
small
a big
business
sigh of
owners,
relief. And
yeah.
all the small business owners knowing that, again, that part of us, we're covered. And if something were to happen, if somebody did decide to sue, at least we know who to call.
Right. So I'm going to give you the
appreciate
floor while we're wrapping up here. Tell everyone listening how they can find you.
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, you can follow us on all social. It's at The Green Room Agency. My personal is Nyssa G, which I also post a lot of fun behind-the-scenes stuff. That's NYSSAG. And thegreenroomagency.com. Our phone number, if you need to call and book us, 678-772-5088. I represent some of the best artists in our state. And you're safe with them. You're going to get a great look. You're going to get exactly what you want. So it's worth the call. As soon as everybody's all corona'd out, call us.
That's right.
And Lita, you and I both can attest to her abilities because
absolutely.
she's done work on both of us.
Well, you know, what we do say in the Green Room Agency, it's not hard to take 10s to 12s, but we will work with a 6. You know.
And you said that looking at me, right?
No, 10s to 12s, I'm saying. But yeah, thank you so very much. I appreciate this so much because this is also something that small business owners need. We need to be able to say that we're open, that we're able to work, and that we want to work, and that we are here and ready. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for your time
I
and coming
appreciate
in onto the show and being our first guest
Thank
today.
you. This was so much fun. I appreciate this.
All right. Well, Derek, thank you again, as always, for your insight and your wisdom. And we've already told everyone on the show how they can find you. So I'm going to close us out here. Thank you so much for joining us on Injury Insider with Derek Hayes, presented by Status Home Design and the Law Office of Derek M. Hayes. Don't forget that you can enjoy any of our episodes by visiting businessradiox.com, selecting the Gwinnett Studio, and then clicking on Injury Insider with Derek Hayes. This program is also available on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, for Derek Hayes, I'm Lita Brooks, and you've been listening to Injury Insider on Business Radio X.